The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's a child psychologist and she's working after her pension. She's, I think, 72 or 73. And we were talking about her work, but we were also talking about Gen AI. And as a 70 something year old, I'm not saying all 70 something year olds, but definitely this person doesn't trust most technology, to be honest with you. Which, fair. So we were talking about this, and she told me she was kind of complaining about her coworkers, because she's working after her pension, about her coworkers using Gen AI to generate reports on children. She's not sure if they use it to analyze input, but definitely to write reports. And that really, really seriously worried me. The reason she knows that they're using GPT is because she's been working with them for longer than just a day, and suddenly the language of their reports has gotten better. The contents, however, have not. Now, anyone who's worked with Gen AI for some time, or professionally mostly, knows that there are many risks to using Gen AI: hallucination, bias, the ecological impact, but there are more than that. Those risks get higher when you're not really good at working with GPT and when you don't understand as well what the risks are, because then you can't be alert to them. So I was talking to this person a while about what she was seeing and um, how she felt about that and how she sees kind of not the future of AI. I didn't ask her about that, but just what kind of impact she's seeing on her work. Now, remember, she's a child psychologist, which means they're working with vulnerable children. They're working with children who have been sometimes taken out of the home, or who are having trouble in school, or whatever the case may be. These are vulnerable children and vulnerable families. Now, I am going to guess that her coworkers might be not, I don't know that, I don't know them, but might be really good at their job as a child psychologist, right? I'm not going to argue with that. But what they're not necessarily good at is prompting, is talking to AI in a way that will not guarantee, but mostly guarantee good output. They don't know that the phenomenon of output blindness exists. They don't know that if they get a lot of output during the day and they're just checking it, that they're going to miss things. They don't really know what hallucination means. They think they will catch the hallucination because it will look ridiculous, but it usually doesn't. It sounds reasonable. Whatever the AI is claiming or saying sounds reasonable because the language is very fluent, but it's not. They think they know what bias is, but they don't know what it looks like in practice from an AI. And they don't know what the effects are of cognitive offloading, where they use the AI and, increasingly use the AI because it's maybe faster or easier. And their brain doesn't go to work, and it has a detrimental effect, a potential detrimental effect on their brain, as preliminary research has already shown. So when I hear that these people are working with vulnerable children and they're prompting ChatGPT, I haven't even mentioned the fact that I don't know what information they're actually giving ChatGPT. I don't know what information that's personal information they're giving ChatGPT. And I am guessing, I am guessing, but this is a guess. I'm not saying this is true, that they are giving personal information that can lead to the identity of these children, which I don't even care how anybody uses it, whether it's OpenAI or it can be leaked in some other way, but you shouldn't be doing. But what I'm pretty sure of, what I'm guessing, is that they don't know how to talk to the LLM to get answers that are not all of the, that don't contain all of the risks that I just described. And I think it's worrying. I think it's worrying, and I think this is exactly, or this is one of the points, I should say, let me not exaggerate. This is one of the points that doesn't get spoken about enough. We talk about hallucination and bias and all of these things in a general sense, but what we seem to not be looking at is the places at work where Gen AI has an impact on just people who just go to work and then use GPT, Chat GPT, or Cloud, or whatever, which one they use, in all kinds of businesses, not to build co-pilots, not to do really interesting projects necessarily, but just to make their work easier, which sounds good. Who doesn't want their work to get easier? But it can have real world impact that these people have no idea what that is, what that's going to mean, or what it means for them already. And if you look at bigger, like the larger corporates, right? Especially the ones that operate in regulated industries. They have like an AI governance board. They have an AI ethics officer, and they have an implementation manager, and they have strategies and all of the things that, and they have compliance departments and legal departments. Did I say compartments? I meant departments. They have legal and compliance departments. They have a lot in place that won't make it 100% safe. We're going to talk about that some other time, but that at least makes it a little bit more safe. But this small institution that has maybe 5 or 6 people working there with vulnerable children and families, they do not have these things. They have personal access, probably to the free version of any LLM. They haven't been sent to the courses that they would need to understand any risks. They don't work with online privacy. No, I'm a content and Gen AI strategist. And as a content specialist with more than 25 years of experience, I've had to deal with privacy issues throughout my career. And not just privacy issues, just privacy questions, because I don't think they're issues. I think privacy is very important. And I've had to think about it, understand it, and balance it against commercial goals that we might have, and try to come out on the right side of history. Um, so that's been always been a part of my work. But for someone who is a child psychologist, that is not the case. And so I was talking to this person and trying to explain to them. I could hear myself talk. I was trying to explain these risks to them. I was trying to explain how many of these risks are also compounded risks. It will go wrong. It just won't go wrong immediately, is what I'm trying to say. And as I was listening to myself and trying to explain, I guess, how LLM works just in the most basic way, and trying to explain how prompting works and what it really is, and trying to explain concepts like output blindness and cognitive offloading and all of these things, I could hear on the other end of the phone the person checking out, which I can understand, by the way, because if you don't work in this all day and you're not blessed, cursed, I don't know, with hyper focus, then this is not a subject you want to think about. And it sounds too complicated as well. For these people, ChatGPT is like the Chrome browser, but ChatGPT is not like the Chrome browser, though, is it? So what ChatGPT does is it sneaks in by way of someone using it to create, to generate, let's call it content, but to generate any type of information, it sneaks into all of the seams within the company, not just the Gen AI chatbot, and not just I don't know, the Gen AI driven knowledge base or the Gen AI supported search. No, we're talking of course, emails. We're talking reports. I've worked with people who have to make risk reports and use GenAI to do it. And some of the people are relatively good at prompting, but some of them really are not. And when I'm looking at those prompts, they're potentially dangerous. Now, let me be very clear. Um, my work as a content specialist, if I screw up, usually nobody dies, which is good. I like that the stakes are not that high. But people can be misinformed, which can be bad, and that's why we have processes in place. But in my work, the stakes are they're commercially high, but they're not as physically high. That's how I would say it. But where this person works, they kind of are. Because these reports stick to these kids. These reports can have these reports and analysis can have real world consequences for people, as I said, that are already vulnerable. And I just really wish, I don't know what the solution is, right? Like in a corporate setting, as I said, there are things in place that you can push against because these problems also exist in a corporate setting, but you can push against them or, have conversations or start projects or ring the alarm bell. And because, especially as I said, in a regulated context, people are willing to listen to these risks, broadly speaking. But in the context, as I said, of these smaller organizations, and there are many of those, that is not necessarily the case. And I'm just thinking, what is a solution to this? And I don't really know the answer. It's the reason why I write articles, and I should write some more that are more accessible to people who are not necessarily, as I said, hyper focused on Gen AI. But that would assume that they'd be reading my article. And even if I would train them or would offer to train them, then the question is, would they then understand the risk in, a 2 hour workshop or whatever? They might for a little while, but then the ease and the speed of it will probably win in the end. These people are always backlogged because they don't have the means or the money in general to do all the work that they need to do. So I understand that. I'm not trying to criticize that even. I'm looking at it and it's worrying me. And it just feels very much like we've given a tool, a very complicated tool to the masses and have given the complicated tool that could ignite a nuclear war. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little now, but that could ignite or start a nuclear war to the masses and made the UX, the user interface, really easy. And yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that. But we did. So yeah, I was just, I don't have an answer. I don't know. Maybe governments should make it mandatory for everyone to do a Gen AI workshops or training or whatever. Because I know that right now, if you work with AI in specific sorts of way, there are specific demands on the knowledge that you have to have. But we're still skipping the part where there's people like this person's coworkers who don't they're not for them it's not mandatory to have knowledge about AI, but they are using it. And as I said, that has real world consequences that are going to also be hard to roll back because a lot of these people aren't even admitting that they're using AI. The reason this person kind of figured it out is because their work beforehand, the language was really bad. It's their second language. The language was really bad. and now suddenly it's coherent. And I mean, linguistically coherent. Is that the way to say that? I mean, it's not like they were incoherent before, but they're making less mistakes, is what I'm trying to say. Fewer, I'm sorry. They're making fewer mistakes. So they're not even admitting that they're using Gen AI. It's just quite obvious. They're not very sophisticated about hiding it. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear how others see this because I feel often like I'm some kind of negative Nancy pointing out all the risks. But, you know, I think AI and Gen AI can do beautiful things if it's used well. You know, just like a saw can do beautiful things and make art, even. I'm not saying Gen AI could. I'm just making I'm just comparing here. It's just a metaphor. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, a saw can make art, or it can saw off your arm. There is a huge difference between those. And the second one is not really cool. So yeah, let me know your thoughts because I'm truly interested to see how other people see this. Because as I always say, those who are, let's say for AI are way too happy and too hype focused, and those who are against usually start at the point where they're like, we have to never use AI, and it's not happening in real reality. That idea is just not going on. People are using AI. They are using Gen AI, whether it be because they work somewhere where they're kind of forced to do it, or because it helps them be more efficient, or, come up with better output, whatever it may be, whatever the case may be. So you can say that people shouldn't use Gen AI, but at this point in history, that is not going to work out. So let me know. I'm not being a negative Nancy. I'm just seeing a problem. I think I'm seeing a problem that's going to compound and be a really big problem in the coming years. And it might be too late to roll it back then.